Oh, it gives me a little pop-up.
Oh, look at that. It says upcoming. Upcoming. There we go. Okay,
Oh, look at that.
looks like we are live. So, all right, I'll give people a minute or two to hop in. The ones that have been patiently waiting while we had to sort out some mic issues and Zoom issues, but we made it. So we're here. Yeah, let's see. Okay, all righty.
Oh man.
Oh, what is Christian's just messaging. All right, cool. All righty. All right. Let me get my other thing up here. Okay. So this will be fun. All right, everybody, welcome in. Welcome to Space Weather Unplugged, our weekly little fun little podcast. And today we have a special guest, Sara Housseal. Did I say it right?
You
Housseal.
did.
So she is a space weather forecaster, our favorite people. We always bother when we do aurora chasings and things. And is pursuing a master's in applied physics from Johns Hopkins University. So that's pretty cool. And her love for space weather goes beyond her full-time job as an operational space weather forecaster. And she's passionate about communicating space weather to the general public and social media, which we all have had some fun with that one, right?
Yeah. Love-hate relationship.
Yes. Because didn't you sort of just get started on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, I know you have some pretty wild stories about being pretty vocal on the Twitter.
Yeah. It's funny because when I first started, I would like post and I'd like kind of keep my mouth shut because I was too scared to like ever do anything too crazy. And then
Right.
it's just like the longer it gets and the more used to it, I'm just like, no, I'm over this.
That's great. It's like, come at me. Just come at me. I will put you in your place.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. So yeah, we kind of have this open format here. I'm not sure where you wanted to go or talk about, or I know we had some things because I know a lot of people get interested in the forecasting and how you go about doing that on a
Sure.
day-to-day basis. So we could probably start in that realm if you want.
Yeah. I mean, I figured that was probably easier than me trying to like make slides. I'm like, I'll just let the people guide me
Yes,
in
let the
how
people
this
guide.
goes.
Yeah, and I'll try to keep the chat up in the sidebar here to see if
Okay,
anybody,
that's
because
curious how that worked.
yeah, and I have it on my phone, so it's like I'm trying to like I have the other setup where you could have the chat like on the side and it's real nice. So
Yeah.
that's what I miss doing the stuff from the mobile setup, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, you make do with what you got. That's why I was like, do I try to like pull it up on another tab so that I can see it, or what do I do here?
Oh yeah, that's right. Let me do in case you do have some things to share, I'm going to give you all the sharing properties. So now you're good. So if you have some
Okay.
stuff you want to pop up, feel free. And we got our favorites from down under here.
I love that. I'm excited.
Yes. So I will let you take it away.
Oh, okay. Man, where do I even start? So, I mean, yeah, okay. So, like you said, I'm a space weather forecaster. So, I work in pretty much a similar setup to Swipsy. So, 24/7 ops, which is why if you follow me on Twitter, sometimes you see me tweeting at very obscure times because I'm awake at work, dealing with the son's temper tantrums.
Right.
um, yeah, so I unfortunately or fortunately, sometimes it has its pluses. I rotate through all the shifts. So like right now I'm on I guess what most people would consider like second shift. So like
Okay.
3 to 11 p.m. is my hours right now for babysitting duty of the son, as I like to call it.
Like
um,
that too. Because it kind of is.
yeah, I mean, literally, it's like you're just sitting and waiting until it does something. And then you're like dealing with the chaos of whatever it is. It's screaming at you or whatever. But yeah, so I'm in a similar format to that. So pretty much just, like I said, watching and waiting, all the things. I know we technically had this titled as like space weather modeling. Oh, I need to mute that. Um, so in my exact position, we don't do any modeling. We leave that to SWPC and NASA,
Okay.
just because that's kind of easier in a sense. They are the, I guess, experts in that, and it just makes it a little bit easier because space weather modeling is definitely a little complicated and the things you need and having to be able to measure and fit all those things. But I am, I guess, still a little adverse in it between working with SWPC and I have a lot of friends at NASA's M2M office who do all the modeling. So I know a little bit. I'm not a personal modeler, but I'm trying to figure out how to mute my thing over here quick so that it stops
No worries.
beeping.
Shut up. Shut up.
Yeah, I'm busy. I think I got it. Maybe.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I don't hear anything anymore, so
We'll see
maybe.
if it beeps at me again.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I still get to do all the analyzing of models and building the forecasts and things like that, and then trying to share those things on social media and try to combat some of the chaos that comes with the models and the forecasts and all of those fun things. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of sad that the sun's not doing anything right now.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet. Um, yeah, when was the last time we actually had an X flare? It's
I
been,
think getting to like 2 months now almost.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was gonna say it's been quite quiet.
Yeah, I'm
So,
just like waiting
how do you feel,
again.
how do you feel your time when you sit there and
I
the sun
have,
doesn't do anything?
so for me, it's usually like the social media stuff, or
Uh-huh.
honestly, like working on my master's stuff.
Okay.
So the class that I'm taking, I only do one semester at a time because it's a lot. But the class that I'm taking this semester is space physics. So super applicable. We're talking about the sun and all those things. So it's kind of fun. It's like I'm doing schoolwork, but it's like fun work.
Right.
It's like it's actually funny. Our assignment for this week is we have to do like sunspot analysis and like counting of sunspots, and I'm like, oh, that's my bread and butter right there.
Yes, you should have that done in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, but it's like I feel so bad. Like the people that don't have experience in that, I'm like, this is brutal. Like
Yeah.
staring at sunspots is not easy.
No, and then especially if you have to do if you have to classify them, because
Yes.
I still don't. I mean, like we did like a stream on this a couple weeks ago, and I still don't like. I couldn't commit any of that to memory, and like
No.
or like even looking at them, like you know, because it seems like sometimes they can be kind of close in
Yeah.
configuring and how you make that decision to be like, okay, this is this type of spot versus this one. I don't know. Seems like it's quite a skill.
Well, I mean, one too, because like I mean, I'm still like not great at it and question myself all the time because it's like the like examples that you find online are so like simple and like almost like textbook like.
Uh-huh.
It's like no sunspot ever actually looks like that. Like they're all like nasty and mixed together and like you're like, like it could be this or it could be this. Like it's just not that easy and I still have a hard time with it.
I'm glad that you said that because I struggle with that too. You know, like even looking at solar wind data and like you know you're looking for like CME structures and you're
Yep.
like I don't know maybe because
Yeah.
nothing looks like it's supposed to.
Yep. Especially when you like I hate those ones where it's like you're like what, like expecting a coronal hole, but then there's maybe a CME out there. So it's like, what is this? Like
Yeah.
it gets really muddy really quick. And it's, yeah, it's always, you always learn on the textbook stuff and then you have to like decipher from there on out.
Right. Yeah. So one question that I had was like, when you say chaos in response to the models you share, what are you referring to? The trolls?
All of the above.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think, except for those times where like, I guess you could argue that maybe I instigate something. I don't really deal with trolls that much.
Okay.
It's usually just the like the I don't know, like it's like one model run comes out and suddenly everybody's a space weather expert and it's just like
All right. Yeah.
and it's so hard like cuz that like I enjoy the social media part, but because I work weird hours sometimes, like it's so hard to keep up with because everybody gets to it before I can even catch up on what just happened because I'm like waking
Right.
up
Yeah.
at like 3 p.m. and there's like chaos on Twitter because there was a CME and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
You don't even have time to like process it. But
yeah. And then it's like by the time I get to it, the crazy posts have already run rampant and it's chaos. Like,
yeah, I need to do more on Twitter. I don't. Well, it's funny. I will always call it Twitter.
yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. I,
so sorry to anybody that still calls it or X. It's always gonna be Twitter to me.
yep.
I'm
I'm
old,
the same way.
so because I seem like I miss out on a lot of the stuff on there, and that's where a lot of you guys live is Twitter.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, it's has that changed at all? Like with all the craziness going on, like because it seems like some people have migrated over to Blue Sky, but
Yeah.
it seems like it's like you can't get away from Twitter.
No, because it feels like it's like a lot of people will migrate, but you're never going to get a situation where everybody migrates.
Right, yeah.
Always like everybody on Twitter. And it's so hard because like, yeah, like threads and blue sky are like similar formats, but I'm just so used to those like easy, quick posts that you can do on Twitter that it's just so hard to like get away from that.
That makes sense. So yeah, it's I found that it's hard. Like it's kind of like Facebook too. Like people will try new social media platforms, but it's like you always just kind of end up back to the OG.
Yeah.
Like it's the established one.
Yeah. It's like I have Twitter and then Facebook if I want to do like longer, like big posts or
Yeah,
something that Twitter just doesn't support as well. It's like those are my two go to, and I always dabble with other ones, but it's just never the same.
right. Yeah. All right. So, what new satellite
Oh,
function would you like to see launched next? Like as
oh
a forecaster, like what would you love to see that currently isn't there or could be better, maybe even?
it's a tough one because I feel like in the perfect world would be like more coverage around the sun, right? Like,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, like I know there's L5 coming, but that's like what
Yeah,
5?
2031.
yeah,
Yeah,
2021.
but even like that, like what I think it originally was 29 and it got pushed to 31. So it's like, is it going to happen in 31? And then
Right.
I don't know how much, because what that's in, is that India? Who, or is that East? I get them mixed up.
Oh, right, yeah. 'Cause I thought it was India. That's
So like, I don't know like what that relationship is with like the US, like what of it is going to be available to us. I'm not really sure
pretty good
how
question. Yeah.
that's going to work. Um, but obviously that would probably be a big one because then you get that like before view of the sun. Um, honestly, yeah, that's a big one. It would be nice to maybe get like I wish we could have stereo A and stereo B back. Like, can we get a
Yeah.
replacement for stereo B, please?
Yeah, that's kind of a sad little story. It's like it because it just kind of went out of commission pretty early on.
Yeah, and then
Is,
you just have A over here still chugging along.
isn't it stuck in like a permanent spin from what I heard? Like a
That's
B?
what I heard. Yeah,
What's
and
that?
I thought I'd heard something about like when it approached Earth, they were gonna try to like communicate with it and try to get it out of that spin cycle.
Yeah.
I never heard anything, so I don't. I assume not.
Yeah, it's either didn't work or it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
we're
I
yeah,
don't
that's
know.
a good one to get something like that back to because
Yeah,
isn't one of the main big issues with trying to forecast the stuff is like trying to project a 2D image into 3D. Like you just don't.
yeah. It's like between like not having like more view, like advanced notice, but also I know like modeling is so difficult off of just LASCO.
Yeah.
They really rely on like a side view to do like triangulation. So like whenever we lose stereo, I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah,
It's,
that's a pretty scary thought.
yeah, especially for like the halos where like it's hard to measure that from LASCO because it's coming right at you. So
Mhm.
they need stereo to give that like side profile of it.
And then it's nice to like to verify things too. We had an event fairly recently that was kind of verified by Stereo A, I believe. It was
Yeah.
a front where it was a front-sided event, but it was originally thought to be far-sided. But then
Yeah.
yeah, Stereo A like was the little savior there.
Yeah, right. It's like
Having
I'm
those side views is quite nice.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know if anybody will ever go for L4 or
Mhm.
not.
I think Korean Airspace Agency is at least talking about L4 mission.
Okay.
So possibly it,
Yeah.
but it would be great for radiation storm modeling.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, that's like in the plans and very remote. So I think Vigil at L5 is more likely to happen than L4 mission, at least for
Yeah.
now.
And
Yeah,
at least at this point, we should, or they should have Vigil by next Solar Max.
Would
here's
be
the hope.
good.
It would be great. Yeah, it's, I'm glad we have that new Goes 19 chronograph too, because that's the other thing is like, what do we have? We have Lasco basically, and that's on it's on Soho, which has been up there since the early 90s.
Yeah.
It's like still just chugging along, but it's like our only chronograph.
Yeah. Yeah. So at least we've got the goes now.
Yeah, so
That's,
that's nice. It's nice to have that redundancy.
yeah.
So, oh, sorry. I mean,
You're,
I just can't believe this. Like, this is working with the general public for 2 weeks. It was like
yep.
I didn't escape. I didn't escape. Whatever. So do you have any cool Twitter like do you have a favorite Twitter story that you want to
Oh,
share?
oh, geez. Favorite Twitter story. I have one, but I don't know if I should bring it up again.
Oh, that bad, huh?
Uh, I mean, I personally thought it was funny for the most part, but it was a little sketch. Um, I probably should not put that. I can tell you about that privately. I probably should not put that back in the
Okay.
universe.
All right.
It could be a little scary. Um,
Fair.
I don't know. I don't know about Twitter stories. Hmm.
Maybe I could rephrase like how would you like to see space weather communication move forward? Like, because I think some of the problem with social media is like everything is all over the place and
Hmm.
nothing is unified. So, as part of this whole world of like, especially with all the excitement with Solar Max, like, uh, is there something in like that you'd like to see happen that become where things can become more like communicated well, kind of like terrestrial weather. Like everybody knows like what certain things are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
See, that's what sucks is like everybody knows that for terrestrial weather, but then like with space weather, it's like they throw all that out the window. It's like
yeah,
it's kind of similar in a sense of like, in terrestrial weather, you don't trust models that are like what, like 2 weeks out or
right,
whatever.
yeah.
You know how to take things lightly with the models, but it's like with space weather, it's like the end all be all, like this is it. And it's like, no. Like,
Yeah, that is the funniest part, I think, too, because like we're sort of working on a project um to try to try to suss out like how people take um I guess probability, you know. Um,
Well, how people take sort of official forecasts and actually use it for aurora chasing, because let's face it, those forecasts never been developed for aurora chasing. They're for industry. And the way modeling is done, that's for industry. So all the prediction of, yeah, this is going to be a great G3 may not actually come true. Or the CME will arrive at 5 p.m. That may not come true. So but this is what we see because there is really not a whole lot of things being communicated to the general public. It's all mostly industry, which is appropriate because SWIPC has industries to protect and communicate space weather to them because they're vulnerable and they have to take mitigating actions. But we're still interested. We want to know.
it's like, yeah, said that much better. What I was trying to say through my medicated brain fog. But yeah, because I think that's the main problem is there's just that disconnect between like industry and more like mainstream and
General public, I would say.
public. So I think it would be cool to sort of develop a way to, or like a kind of like a unified front, maybe, how to communicate things with the general public that doesn't cause all this chaos all over social media and like, stuff like that. But it still amuses me that we can be okay with terrestrial weather forecasts being off or wrong, but the space weather stuff isn't. So that
Yep.
I find that pretty interesting.
Yeah. And then like when it's not, it's immediately to like finger pointing, like, oh, Swipsy was wrong. Oh, NASA
Yeah,
was wrong. Like, I mean, I guess, but like it's not that simple ever. Like,
right. And then you're dealing with I mean like we've come so far in the terrestrial weather stuff, they send up balloons every day like across the whole country. So they can get a pretty good handle on all these systems and fronts and stuff that are happening. And we have what? Glasgow?
yeah. Yeah. And then you're blind for everything in the middle. Like, it's like,
Kind of amusing to me in a way.
yeah,
Like,
I don't understand how that has happened. Like,
yeah, I think that's one of my biggest questions I have is how is like we can have such okay with, not having a great weather forecast, but space weather forecast, it's like, no, it wasn't accurate, so it's bad.
yeah. Yeah. And then it's like everybody has their opinion of how they would have done it better. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really easy after the fact,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like when you're trying to do it with some SDO surface imagery and a few frames of LASCO, like it's a coin toss.
Mhm.
And hindsight is 2020. Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, you can pick it apart after the fact and be like, oh, well, yeah, I guess it looked like this. But like, I joke at work all the time when I'm like training new people on like how to do this, that it's like logic your way through it, give me an answer based on the science, and then forecast the complete opposite. Because you can sit
Love it.
there all day long and pick apart the imagery and be like, oh, well, it kind of looks like it went this way, but it's like it's going to do what it's going to do.
Yeah.
My science and logic can only go so far.
Yeah, I guess you do have to be one of the things like I kind of like stepped back a little bit from posting too much on it. It's because of that fear of being wrong and being like chastised for it so hard. Um, so you kind of have to like grow that little bit thicker skin and be like, well, this is what we have to work with. And
Yeah,
you seem to have done that quite well, so that's good.
I like to think I've gotten better at it.
Yeah. We always laugh about it. I think it's great.
But yeah, it's like that's the only way to survive space weather forecasting is just you try and then you accept it and you just move on. Like
Yeah,
because also no event is the same either, right? So it's like, yeah, you can do some like post analysis and try to learn from it, but it still doesn't really matter because every single event's going to be completely different anyway.
Yeah, no two flares are the same, no two CMEs are the same.
No
Yeah.
two substorms are the same.
Yeah, no two storms are the same. Yeah, that's as we've all been digging deeper and deeper into the magnetospheric response and realizing just how wild that world is. Like you think you might have one thing figured out, but you don't, and that's crazy too. So I don't even know like where to go sometimes with all this. It's like and how to communicate it when so many things have to come together, and even when you think they come together, they don't act like you thought it was going to.
Yep.
Uh, It'll be an interesting future to see, especially if we start fleshing out more of the aurora side of things and the, like actually getting more of that magnetospheric uh, science in there. Because like right now, it's really just like what you're doing. You get the stuff comes in and it's for operations. So aurora is really that super important. Um, it's more or less the radiation storms and things like that that can harm things. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just some interesting things to think about, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, I know like for me, for like my job, it's like, obviously I don't want to like let an event go unacknowledged and
Right,
unforecast,
yeah,
but it's like to a degree, like I'm working with what I have. So
yeah,
it's, I've kind of had to stop trying to like fixate on it so much and just like, what's the chances of this happening? Like,
yeah,
if there's a decent chance, then I just have to go for it and I have to forecast it. And that's what I've tried to explain too on like Swipsy's side is like, I've seen so much, like, everybody has an opinion on the forecast. And it's like, oh, well, why'd they go G3? Like, it didn't look that great. And it's like, you have to realize who they're protecting.
Mhm.
yeah.
Like, again, like this isn't about the aurora. This is about the power grid and satellites. And if there's a chance, a decent chance that that can happen, they have to go for it. It's no longer about individual opinion. Like, because yeah, you can have two forecasters where one's like, well, I don't think it's that bad, but it's like you have to put your opinion aside and you just have to go for what's the chances of there being an impact that could affect your stakeholders.
Makes sense. It really does. And I think that's the one thing anybody who's been watching this for a while has probably knows that we've been harping on is that a lot of like these forecasts are for things that aren't related to Aurora. Because that's the one message we want to get across, to kind of help with the disappointment that can come when things don't pan out. Or flip side, but like it's better than we thought it was gonna be. I mean, maybe not for the stakeholder side of things, but
Yeah.
so because that happens every so often. But I know it like you guys try to um I guess over forecast and under forecast. So
Yeah.
Yeah, there is definitely more impact of under forecasting because if particularly a big storm, because if nobody prepared, that's a problem. Like the G4 that actually hit on January 1st,
yeah,
it was pretty impactful.
Mm-hmm.
There are reports from New Zealand they had to take out a couple of power lines because they were seeing huge geomagnetically induced currents there. And that didn't happen since, well, the May storm. So that was interesting. No power disruption, fortunately, but they had to take the line out.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether or not they were prepared. The previous storm, the May storm, the report from that incident is quite telling because they were very much confused about all the warnings that were coming in UTC. So converting time to New Zealand was challenging. And they had to take quite a few lines out of service because of geomagnetically induced currents. They had to communicate to their stakeholders. So I think they're probably developing slightly better communication strategies for at least the power industry. But again, that storm was predicted, and it turned out to be again bigger. but at least it's basically G4 plus. So it could be anything from G4 and higher. That's what SWIFT was predicting.
Okay.
The storm on January 1st was a bit different because I think it wasn't predicted of that magnitude, so there was a little bit of a surprise for everybody.
Yeah, it ended up being a little bit a little bit stronger than we thought. And
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really saw any aurora from it from the US because we were all under cloud cover. So it was fun.
Yep.
And it happened actually the G4 part of it came
Yeah.
in our
Oh,
morning hours,
that's
so
right.
we missed it altogether. That was not for us at all.
So
What a way to start the year.
yeah, great way to start the year. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
is this how things are going to be set up?
Happy
Like
New Year. No Aurora for you.
Yeah.
you get clouds and it's coming during the day. Have fun.
I don't know if I would say that people who are looking at the forecasts um, necessarily have to deal with disappointment. I think having an understanding of how forecasts work may mitigate some of that, oh yeah, it didn't happen. At least, yeah, there's still going to be sort of, well, you waiting for something to happen, it's not coming, but that disappointment doesn't hurt as much if you understand that it may go very differently. That this is the max potential impact and may not turn out to be exactly that. And you have to watch data in real time and figure out what that data means.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then it becomes a battle of the apps. The app, like my favorite app that always shows the bars, like it's gonna happen at 5 p.m. to 6 or whatever, and I'm like, oh gosh. It's like, can we not?
But
I always know.
unfortunately, that's propagated by the media.
It
The
is, yeah.
local local news will pick up the story, and sometimes the story is picked up by big media outlets that it's going to be G3, and they're going to list every single state that's included in that awful red circle, including Alaska in the middle of summer.
Yeah,
That's where Aurora is going to show up.
And then it
And
comes down to which G3 circle are we talking about? Because there's at least 3 or 4 different models out there that show different latitudes as to how far it's going to go. I've seen one that showed G3 all the way down to southern Ohio, and then the other one it's barely hitting Canada. Like, so which one are they picking now?
Or they're just drawing their own. I see
they are.
those too.
Honestly, could see that better. Yeah.
And I'm like, where did you even get this from? Because there's not any model that shows it the way you drew it. But I'm like, okay. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
So
people have added sort of a cell phone visibility line to some of the official models, and that's where they're going with. So I've seen that we have seen that model being posted on I think several um, Facebook posts, and I think I've seen it on Twitter. It's just an added line, and it's already a problematic model because it's for really for max impact from pretty much 6 p.m. all the way through 6 a.m. And how often does it pan out? Almost never.
right.
But still, people will add, this is a cell phone visibility line. So if you're there, be ready. And they will tell the time and they go for specific intervals. So yeah, it's very problematic. But again, I don't know how often media will actually communicate to Swipsy. There are some posts where they actually interview forecasters and get into details how forecasts are developed, what it means, and why they're this way, as opposed to, yeah, this is all for Aurora. But most of the time, it's just data is available. It is publicly available data. Come and get
mhm.
it, do whatever you want with it. And if it doesn't pan out the way you told your readers or your audience, well, it's not your forecast anyway. That's Swipsy. So that must be their problem. And this is a very problematic relationship where media carries absolutely no responsibility for delivering forecasts in the way it's never supposed to be delivered.
Mhm.
Right. Yep. Seems to be all just willy-nilly filled out. All
Yeah.
right. So here's a question. How much different do you expect forecasting to be by the time we get to the next solar max? Like
Ooh.
what sorts of advancements do you think might happen in the next decade?
Hmm.
I know,
I know.
right?
Love this question.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot. That's like, I mean,
It's
I
like,
know there's constant research going on all the time. I don't keep up with it as much to know how that's going. But really, I think the biggest thing is I know that Swipsy has quite a few additional missions planned now. They got the GOES 19 out there with the chronograph, but then they have the Space Weather follow on, and there's some additional missions that they're planning to at least get replacement for our poor ancient satellites out there. I
yeah,
don't know what new or additional things they might have. It might just be a lot of replacement with coronagraph or solar wind data, things like that. Um,
Let's be
but
honest, we could use a new solar wind monitor.
uh, yes, yes, it's a sad state of affairs when the more recent one is the one that gives you more trouble.
And then
yeah,
distinguishing, let's see, is it ACE that's going to give us problems today? Should we read this part of ACE and then this part of Discover?
Yeah, you literally just have to like Mod Podge them together. It's like, oh, I'm gonna have a hard time when Ace dies. Like, just just basically be blind because Discover will take a CME hit and it'll be out.
yep.
But in other advancements, I don't know. Like, I know there's a lot of work going in trying to find a way to forecast flares. That
Mhm.
would be very interesting if that ever pans out in any capacity. I don't currently have a way to wrap my brain around that because I know they look into it and think they have found different like early indicators in different data, but it just still feels so random to me.
Yeah,
Uh, like you'll have one crazy spot that does nothing, and then you get like an X flare from a freaking alpha spot. Like, okay, son, whatever. Like,
that's like, huh? Maybe we'll leave that up to them crazy heliophysicists like Scott.
yeah,
Like,
yes,
figure this out. Figure this one out.
yeah. After he nails how to forecast solar cycles, we'll get him on
Yeah,
the
how
spot.
to get flares. He seems to be doing pretty good with the solar cycle.
I
So
know
I
that's
mean, yeah, he's the only
pretty.
one doing pretty good.
it's
Yeah,
always fun listening to him talk because it's like, you're riding this wave because you're like the rogue that got it right. So
hmm
it's like a fun little thing to be.
right. It's one of those things that like I'm sure there are people out there that are just like, oh, like that's just luck. Like, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
you know, he didn't actually figure it out. It was just some luck that he nailed it. But it's like, that he knows
Yeah.
that he figured it out.
Like he found some other little patterns that showed up. And so yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see when they start to talk about solar cycle 26, because I know they were saying that you could see parts of it coming in. Uh,
Yeah. I
so yeah,
really hope they include him in those things and use that as an additional person in their like panel that they do for their
yeah,
predictions.
yeah, for sure. So you're going to Space Weather Workshop, right?
I am.
Yay!
Yeah. I guess as long as I didn't realize it was brought up to me that I guess what the Friday before is when the like current like I don't know how to word like the budget that we like agreed on to not shut the government down is only good till the Friday before Space Weather Workshop.
Oh,
So
is it?
I'm like,
That's
please
good.
don't shut the government down and then Space Weather Workshop be canceled.
I would
Don't
be
do that.
I would be really,
That would be
really
painful.
sorry.
Yeah.
I would cry. Like, so I guess
Because
we'll keep an eye on that.
yeah, I guess we'll find out. Because I'm looking forward to meeting you and Scott and all of them people, and you know, chit chatting with you, kind of like this, and be like, you guys are cool.
I know, I'm excited to see everybody.
Yeah. So in a weird sort of way, I'm glad that, I got sick now. Let's get it out of the way.
Yeah. So that we can all go to Space Weather Workshop and then we can all get sick there and come
Yes, we
back.
can all get sick again.
Because it just feels impossible that that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, but it'll be worth it. It'll be okay. So
Yes. Yes. I would be okay with being sick for that.
yeah, it's worth it. Are you presenting anything there, or are you just going?
Currently I'm just going.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any plans for there to be anything presented, but
All right. That's cool.
yeah.
Because sometimes, you guys bring stuff in. I've actually never been to this thing, and I've never, and I haven't done anything remotely in the academic type field in a very, very long time. So this is going to be really interesting for me anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I forget, you have a poster or a talk?
Yeah, I have a poster. So Tanya does too. And my poster is on this
Yes.
educational podcast that that some random time last summer I decided to do.
Hey, it's those random things that are just the best things.
Yeah, they're kind of fun. They're fun.
It's definitely shown its worth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun to, talk to all like people like you and talk about all the different things with space weather that are interesting. And I've learned a lot from it. Just doing it by, reading all these research papers that I probably would not have on my own. Because they are pretty, I mean, for me, they're pretty, sometimes can be pretty difficult to get through.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't have a physics background. Um, but it's funny because you can read through them and you can kind of pick up things here and there, that kind of make sense. Or you don't
Yeah.
have to behind it. So it's cool that you're going for applied physics.
Trying.
So hats off to you because I just read these equations and I'm like, nope, not for me. Can you show me a picture of how this works?
It's a scary place though, because it makes me feel like I should know. And then
Yeah,
like you were saying, like sometimes in my free time at work, I would try to like read articles to like stay up to date on things that are happening. And
yeah,
some of them I get into them and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm reading. Like,
yeah. You're just reading and you're like, I'm not comprehending. I'm like,
no.
Yeah, like words make sense, the sentences don't.
yeah. It's like I
I'm
think
like catching myself rereading the same part over and over again and trying to make sense of it, and it's just not happening.
yeah, so it's fun. But it's nice because I feel like I haven't really been crazily challenged in a while. So it's fun to be back in this world.
Yeah.
Especially because, the other thing, I don't know, um, that I thought was interesting is like how the space weather community in general has like embraced a lot of citizen science, which is kind of like different than a lot of other academic worlds or things. And and I never thought I'd be involved with it to this degree because I don't have a science background. So it's kind of cool to sort of be thrown into that and then actually be able to like contribute to it. And I think that's kind of a neat little, I think what makes the space weather stuff more unique than some of the other science disciplines out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it also like maybe makes it a little bit less daunting to the
Yeah.
public. It's like, hey, like you don't have to be a scientist to be involved in this. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's very easy to like just get out there, especially when you have those big events where it's like what the May and December one, like the mass amount of people that saw it for the first time ever, just purely from like people talking about it is incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then now we have all this camera technology that's like leaps and bounds better than it was last solar cycle. So that's made it even more accessible to people.
Yeah.
So so
And it's easier to alert other people
uh,
who might want to see something. So
yeah,
the social media is huge when it comes to raising awareness that something is happening or something might happen, and it has its own issues. We have an interesting question in chat actually. What
shoot.
is your take on use of AI in space weather forecasting?
Oh, that is an interesting question.
Oh, okay. So it's interesting because I feel like it kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier, just that like no two events are the same. So I'd be really interested to see how it handled it. Especially because like I feel like there is so much like, and maybe this is me thinking this way because I'm doing it as a forecaster, but it feels like there's so much need for a person in the loop, like looking at the models and like, because again, like no model is end all be all or anything like that. So like you have to have the ability to make some type of interpretation of what's happening. But
Okay.
but it is interesting. I am interested to see it come out more because I know like that's one of the things they've been trying to use for like flare forecasting is AI.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it's just like I have a hard time wrapping my brain around AI for a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
Just like, you know, for some things, like I understand you can just easily train it and it duplicates, but like for other things, it's hard. But I know they are using AI in terrestrial weather too. So it's like maybe it's not completely that out of reach. It just, it's hard for me to process it.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see like maybe if it can figure out or pick up on some patterns that we haven't been able to find yet,
Yeah.
and then we can take that information and be like, oh yeah, maybe that's the key that we were looking for with like flare detection or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the AI conversation is always interesting because you hear about all the bad with it, but there is some that could come from it, I think. Like, because for like that example, like using it to find things that you might have overlooked or didn't think about. But the importance of having that person in the loop, I think, is still going to be always something that needs to be there. Like, you can't just let it run rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things that are already out there. They're not in operations, but at least in research world. Automatic flare detection, dimming detection, that's Solar Demon. It's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
useful. It probably needs an update because with high solar activity, it's easy to get cumulative dimming that lasts for days because stuff keeps happening and the program reads it, oh, there is more dimming. Let's go for it. Let's count it together. So you end up with a very long sequence. Cactus, automatic CME detection in Blasco is also interesting, and then you really need a human in the loop because that halo CME could be coming from three different sources on the disk, and none of them really has Earth-directed component, but it looks like a halo. So it's not unusual for SITC, which is a space weather prediction center based in Belgium, to issue a correction saying, hey, what we thought was a halo upon further review turned out to be just so many different events all at the same time.
That is
So
true.
there are some issues with machine learning, obviously, and trying to connect events, particularly when we don't have that many observation points, trying to connect events that are happening on the sun and around the sun and sort of stitch it together. You really need a human. So that's kind of hard to do with a machine. And machine learning, well, AI, when we say AI, it's all machine learning. It really is trying to pick up a pattern that we can't for some reason. And the more stuff you throw in, the more blurry it all becomes. So it's harder for machine to kind of sort out the pattern if you just putting everything all at once. There might be a pattern that looks different for solar minimum, and it's going to look very different for solar max.
Yeah.
Same goes for geomagnetic activity correlations. Depending on what season it is, you may see a different response. So when you put it all together, your confidence interval just gets blown. It gets very, very wide. And yeah, it's literally garbage in, garbage out. You're going to get a very messy prediction, even if you throw a machine into thing. So I'm curious to see how people train, and it will depend on training. So you'll have to input quite a few parameters and sort of train machine on different patterns before it's really truly operational. So I don't know if we're there yet. We're not there with large language models. So all the overviews you see with AI when you do a Google search, you're
Garbage.
safer just reading Wikipedia. A lot safer. Otherwise, you're going to be misled. And I think there is a risk of that happening in the forecasting too, unless you kind of know what you're doing with the learning. So that's just my take from seeing what large language models do in some fields.
Yeah, because they're using it yeah, I mean they're just using it at all sorts of things to just try to like, see what it can do, can find stuff and things, but yeah, it's an interesting topic to say the least. It can be kind of fun to play with, but you just have to, realize it's AI. So it can be helpful for some things.
Like setting up resumes.
Yeah,
That's about as
exactly.
far as I would let it go.
So I know some people use it as like an assistant too, or like you could use it for like travel planning or things like that.
Yeah, something that's just easy little, here's some hard data, very, very simple. Organize this in a simple way. So I
Give
don't
me
have to do it. That
give me
kind of
some
thing.
ideas because I can't think right now. Give me some ideas. That type of thing.
Like titles. I do like its ability to give titles. I have this subject, this subject. Give me a good title to just throw out there.
And I like the crazy stuff too. I like when it goes wild, like so like that one Facebook group cursed AI and just the weird things that come out of that you're like, yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a bit different because that's
It is.
generative AI. So it's you're asking it to create something
That's true.
which is
Yeah.
different than picking up a pattern
Yep.
in among the data that's messy and noisy. But yeah, those models unfortunately haven't been known to hallucinate heavily. And that goes for
Good
both
term
images, videos, and text.
Yeah. I do like the fact that the word hallucination is being used in
for a computer system.
Yeah, I love that. That's the first time I've heard that used, and that's a good
Yeah.
that's a good one.
It's accurate.
It is.
It's hallucinating again. I'll trust
That's
it.
that's actually the official term
Yeah, I
in
know.
generative AI.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, really?
hmm
Yeah. Yeah,
Dang.
it's funny. It always cracks me up.
Oh, somebody in chat is saying that the deep learning neural network models did not perform well for cycle 25 max predictions at all. They predicted a weaker amplitude than cycle 24, which was on par with sort of official panel prediction too.
So
Again,
that's
you sort of program what you see, and depending on the data, if you do not put in some rules and some give some examples of predictions how a thing in the solar cycle correlated with the strength and the length of the solar cycle, machine's not going to find it for you. You need a human.
yeah, that's a good example. So yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't realize anybody had run that for a solar cycle.
Well, see, we learn something every day. I love it.
Weird, like, man. But
Uh,
hey, at least it was wrong.
yeah.
And then some.
That's how
Scott
we trained
still,
it.
yeah. Scott still owns it. He still owns it. So I'm just reading. I'm reading for us to see if there's any more questions too. Yeah. No, it's been fun.
Is
Oh,
modeling kind of AI? No, not necessarily. Modeling is not AI. Well, some is, but most of operational modeling isn't. So most of operational modeling, particularly CME propagation, that's a physics-based model. So you are trying to predict how things will evolve based on a fairly well-defined set of equations and understanding of physics of how things propagate in basically between sun and earth. So that's not AI. Models could be developed that are based on machine learning, but not every model is AI.
okay.
Most aren't, at least the ones that are used in operations at this point.
Makes sense.
They're equations with pictures. instead. I like to refer to them input output.
Mhm.
My favorite. Like I said,
Exactly.
I'm not a math person. Give me pictures, please. Thank you. So anyway, I think that's all the questions I have. So let me think if I can think of anything else to ask. Ask this wonderful space weather forecaster. How long have you been doing this? I don't know if I ever asked you that.
So I am a little over 4 years now.
Okay, that's
So
cool.
I started as soon as I graduated with my bachelor's from Millersville in
Okay.
meteorology. I immediately started forecasting. So yeah, because I graduated in 2020.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So meteorology. So the yeah, because the space weather stuff's kind of like an add-on. I
Yep.
think, Earth stuff. So you're pretty well versed then in the old terrestrial weather stuff.
Yeah. I'm probably a little rusty on a lot of it, but
Yeah,
I do technically have a meteorology degree.
cool. That's cool. I guess I never asked, so I never knew that. That's pretty neat.
Yep. Yeah, it was actually funny because I was doing meteorology, kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do with meteorology. And I fell a year behind because meteorology is hard. And so I was trying to figure out how to like fill that time. And Millersville had just recently stood up that space weather minor that they had.
Uh-huh.
And they were trying to get people to take some of the classes. So I was like, well, I have time to fill, like they're like, oh, we'll count it as an elective. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll do that. Literally took a space weather class and I was like, I'm going to finish my meteorology degree, but I want to do space weather.
Like I'm
We're done. Like,
like this is way more interesting. I like it.
and I don't even know what it was. Like, because everybody's like, oh, well, what made you decide that? Like, I really don't even know. Like, if it was just that it was so like unique and like cool, I'm not really sure. I just,
Yeah, like this is different.
yeah,
Try this. Oh, it's neat. Well, here you are. Now,
yeah.
did you want to go into like broadcast meteorology, or was it more
I
like
did.
okay, more on the research or academic side of it?
Yeah, so like that was my that was my struggle with like so I didn't want to do broadcast. I knew that.
Mm,
And then I did an internship and was like, I'm not really into the research bit of it either.
okay.
So it was like, what am I gonna do? Like at that point, it's like maybe do like forecasting for National Weather Service. So that's why I was struggling to figure out what I wanted to do because I was kind of weeding things out. It's like I'm losing options.
Like, what am I gonna do with this?
Glad the space weather spoke to me.
Well, good, because we're glad to have you here.
That we did because you did you finish the certificate?
I'm still in it because I do one class a semester basically
Okay.
because it's at first I was kind of on I was gonna take a couple of them because I had this other job that kind of was remote, take on more things, but then I got laid off from that, so now I'm back doing auto shows, which now I'm traveling heavily again.
Yeah.
So even having this one class right now, it's proven to be somewhat difficult because I have to like I'm like, hey, I got to leave at this time, or I'll have to like schedule breaks around something. So it's been interesting. I'm glad I only have the one class.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah, but I like it, and it's a lot of fun because it's a communications type thing, and then we're doing this type of podcasting, so I think it's like they kind of like helps each other because
Yeah.
Absolutely.
one of the things that I've always been kind of not so great at is the communications of these subjects. So, and I guess the more you do it, the better you get at it and the more you understand things, of course. But so long story short, I'm still muddling my way through.
Okay. Hey, that's fair. Because
Yeah.
did you finish the ones with Tamitha?
Yes. Yeah, I made it
Okay,
through that. And I felt
cool.
like that was like the biggest eye opener. Like, and actually somebody came up to me. I think it was the night I was doing an online night photo summit thing, and somebody messaged me private, and they were like, what did you go through? Because from when I talked to you last time to now, it's like you're a scientist. And I was like, well, I started this
Tampa will do
program.
that too.
Yeah, I started this program and Tamitha was teaching things, and yeah, here we are. So it was nice. It was a little, it was nice to hear that because I struggle with like we were talking about earlier, reading things, and I'm like, I don't really know anything, and then you start questioning everything again, you know. It's that whole cycle.
Yep. I still go through that cycle.
Yeah, you're like, I thought I knew, maybe not.
Yeah. It's funny, I even still get weird, like people like call me like a space weather expert, and I'm like, I don't know about that. Like,
Yeah,
like that. It's just like,
I'm
I
not
don't,
comfortable with that yet.
yeah, I don't think I don't know if I'll ever get there.
I don't know if any of us will, at least in this, because I mean, it's such a emerging field, and like we learn stuff every year. It just kind of throws you for a loop, and you're like,
Yeah.
so, but that kind of makes it fun too, because it's not really set in stone, you
Yeah.
know.
You just keep learning things and
Yeah,
just keep going.
you just gotta learn to accept, when you're wrong.
Yeah. Yep.
Or the science moved on and actually
Yeah,
has different understanding of how
that
things
too.
work. And that's science. That's how things develop. It's evolving. So it's not set in stone, and what we know today may change tomorrow, not because we were wrong, but because we know more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
On that note, how do people actually go and become space weather forecasters? Do they all start with degree in meteorology, or what are the other paths?
Mhm. So I know a lot of people are meteorology, but I don't think that's just because like that's a requirement. That's just I know like that's where a lot of people end up learning about it. I know there's a few people that have like physics backgrounds that get into it, um, which and I think that is one of the benefits of the attention that space weather has gotten on Twitter and just everywhere is that like like I didn't learn about it until I was my junior year of undergrad. I had no idea about space weather, but also at that time it was solar minimum too, so there wasn't anything crazy happening that was getting a lot of attention. But yeah, it's also hard because there's still not a lot of good paths academically in space weather, especially at an undergraduate level. I don't know. This might have changed since I was an undergrad, but there were no programs that were like a bachelor's degree in space weather. Like you're doing like meteorology or physics while knowing about space weather on the side, and you kind of try to navigate it that way, whether you like apply to space weather internships or things like that. But there's still just not a good path for that I know like Tamitha and other people have been trying to kind of push for that, because it's like there's some master's programs and then obviously a lot of PhD, but beyond that it's kind of hard unless you know somebody or hear about it and kind of just make your own path through. But it's a lot of meteorology, but not because that's a requirement or anything. That's just where I think a lot of people get introduced to it in some capacity.
yeah, that's I would have to agree with you on that too, because just going through the Millersville stuff, it's really the only thing out there that's like it. Um, and it's it's like they're trying to figure it out, like how to make it into a thing other than just like putting the hodgepodge together of like, you had this, but that's okay. And then, physics is cool. You obviously understand this, and yeah, hey, yeah, I can't think of anything else that's quite like that.
Yeah.
Everything has like a defined. I guess the closest thing that you could compare it to is like what the emergence of all the computer stuff. Um, so for example, like when I was looking for a job, there was one thing that came up, and it was UXI, I think, user experience. And the more I read into this, and these are people that design like layouts, like on apps. So it's like like even the car radios, like where icons are and things like that. You're like, is it easy to use? And as I found out with that, there's no program for that either. It's just one of those things that kind of there was a need for it, and then people just kind of swam their way through to like figure it out.
Yeah.
That's the closest example I can find to like the space weather thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of sucks because I get asked that a lot of like,
Yeah.
oh, how did you get to it? Like, how can I get to it? And it's like, it's kind of hard because there isn't a good, like, I can't even, like, it's not like I could say, go to this college and do this program. Like, people that want to do meteorology, they go to a meteorology school. Like, it's just not there yet. And I don't know. I'm interested to see if it evolves a little bit more with solar max and it having more attention. But as of right now, it's just still a weird little path that you have to dig your way through, I guess.
A weird little enclave of people
Yeah,
that
it's like even I got super lucky with like where I'm at because it was filled originally by somebody that I knew that went to Millersville who also like flipped to space weather. And they were leaving the position to go somewhere else. And I was like 6 months from graduation. So they put me in contact and I got it. But it's like, other than that, like that was just me knowing somebody. Otherwise, it's like, I don't even know how you find those kind of jobs. Like,
right.
Maybe, I mean, I guess Swipsies would be on like USA Jobs. But other than that, it's like, it's still so niche that like some of these companies like SpaceX, for example, I would assume they have to have some type of space weather person. I would like to convince myself that they don't rely solely on Swipsy, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like, who's filling that? Like, because I like to think that space weather is a pretty small field that like I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
And like, so it's like, who is there filling that position? Is it a meteorologist? Is it a physicist? Like, who, like, out of the, other than these big names like Swipsy and NASA, like, I don't know how those things get filled.
Good point. Yeah, because you're right. The only ones I've ever seen posted is Space Weather Prediction Center on USA Jobs, but I've never seen things posted like anywhere else.
Yeah, and because that's a government job,
Yeah,
they're gonna require some type of experience. Well, it's like, how are you getting space weather experience? Like,
yeah,
please tell me.
yeah. And even then, I think some of them are listed as like general, just like it was like scientist or something. Like it wasn't even like
Yeah,
it was like physical scientist, like a real broad title.
probably because they have to keep it broad because it's like you get too niche with it, it's like you're never gonna find anybody.
Yeah. So it was kind of interesting to see. Oh, that's fun. It's part of the fun. I tell myself.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if we have any more questions at all, but let's see. Unless you have anything else you want to add on our little chit chat to all over the place,
Yeah.
which is fun. Let's see. What did she say? Oh yeah. So to answer Janelle's question about physics knowledge as a prerequisite to Tamitha's program, you don't have to have any physics background. You know,
Nope.
it's operational based, so it's more like conceptual physics, which you don't have to know any of the math.
Yeah.
Because I have no physics background, like none, zero. So yeah, you don't have to, because that was actually when I first met Tamitha at the Aurora Summit, because I was curious about this program. And that was the one thing that held me back because I thought for sure you had to have like this physics background. Like, oh no, because I have an art degree. So it's about as further away from science as you can get. And she's like, yeah, you don't have to have any sort of physics background. I'm like, all right, cool, sign me up. I want to learn more.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I think that's a big thing too, is like people probably relate it to like meteorology, where a
Yeah,
lot of people shy away from meteorology because of the math and the physics. But it's like, it's good to know those things, but like, I don't do an ounce of math or physics for my job. Like,
Yeah,
because again, like it's just not that necessary because it's just too uncertain that it like I'm not even going to get down that rabbit hole of trying to analyze this physically. Like I'm not going to run equations on this CME, and like that's what the models are for.
yeah,
I get an output, and that's the most I'm ever doing. So like yeah, if you want to do research or something, you would need to know the physics and the math, but it's not always required, which is probably what shies some people away too.
yeah, because it definitely did to me until she mentioned it. Because she's like, "Oh yeah, if you're doing operational based, you don't have to know it because like you just said, the models is the physics part, and it does it. So you
Yeah,
just you have to be able to take those concepts and interpret it, and
yep,
that's the what they call secret sauce.
yeah. My math is figuring out how many days it's going to take for the CME to arrive.
Right, and I think I can handle that math. We could bring Christian into all the other physics based things like the arm tattoo that he has. We can show that because I think was that electromagnetism or something.
Yeah, it's a Lagrangian equation that I did at the end of my undergrad. Well, it's really hard to actually show off here, but it doesn't have any
I
relevance to space weather necessarily, except there's an electromagnetic component to it. But Lagrangian mechanics in undergrad was my favorite subject, and then I loved electromagnetism as well. So I'm like, I need something to put together in that case. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's really fun. Icebreaker. Like, oh, I got a tattoo. It's got a bunch of equations, and everyone's first comment is, "Isn't that cheating?"
oh my
Like, I don't know how to answer that, but
Actually,
no.
that's kind of genius. Like you go and take your exam, you're like,
Because
it's
like the equations
that I
themselves don't
like.
mean anything. Like you can know them, it's fine. In fact, most are open note tests, but you need to know what they mean, what situations they apply to, how to actually go through the equations. Like in this case, it's just a Lagrangian. So can you plug that into the Euler-Lagrange equations? Can you get a system of equations as governing the system? Like, so it doesn't really matter in this case that you have the actual stuff on your arm.
I know how to get him going.
I mean, I'm enjoying the conversation personally. This is good.
He's our physics guys. That's why we have him here, right? Yeah. Always gotta have your math guy. He's our math guy. I'm the art guy. I draw. I take pictures. Every time I know about space weather.
Yeah, I'm on the analytical side.
Yeah, she's on analytics,
I mean, you really got the whole package.
Yeah, right.
We do tend to come up with a lot of solutions, or at least possible solutions to questions.
Now we just gotta get you on here to do like an analysis one of these times. Like if something big happens. I think we
Instead
talked
of just low solar wind and nothing going on,
Well, not
sun being
entirely
quiet.
nothing going on. There is a little bit of
speaking
something
of
going on, but it's really minor.
You're
So
being really optimistic.
I'm just waiting for a substorm to drop.
the
It's
sound of
coming.
Hey, we got an M1 flare while we were on here, guys. That's something.
Oh wait, my
Shocking.
R1 alerts are turned off. Crap.
Yeah, so mine. Like,
I can't.
R3 or bust.
Yeah,
I,
do you think we'll get something bigger than our like R4? I don't know.
I've never seen an R4 myself.
When was the last one? Was it
That's
like
like
cycle
now
20?
technically I think with the recalibrations for goes, I think there technically were some for cycle 24.
Okay, all right.
Don't quote me on that. I'm actually gonna have to look that up now because I'm curious. But the we had a bunch of ones that were upped, and I know there was a few X8s and X9s back in 24 during the downside of the maximum.
Because I think we got close, but we didn't quite get there. So we'll see. We'll see as we enter the battleground.
we are there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
we're
We are.
pretty much there now.
Hopefully we'll
I'm
get
not having to battle very hard. What is this?
I
Yeah,
know.
that's true. Like, there's not much war going on though. It's just people setting up, and then they're like, "Yeah, another day."
I know it's been
Now this is recorded on the internet, so the sun is going to put me through a miserable time tomorrow at work.
Yes.
yes. Of
It's
course course
like,
it
oh,
was.
you said I wasn't fighting? Okay. We're gonna get that R4.
Yeah.
Let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
We'll give you something to do.
And it's going to come from 2 or 3 separate regions across the entire solar disk at the same time,
That's right. Yeah.
just to make life difficult.
Yes.
Well, there is one likely candidate. At least one.
Why
But we shall see. I'm wondering if that's the one that's flaring right now.
Are you talking about, was it
I'm
4,000?
assuming 4,000. Yeah.
3998.
Oh,
okay.
We'll
I saw
share
some
it if you
people
want.
talking about 4,000 on
Yeah, there is a 4000 too.
this morning.
Sunspots. Gotta love them. It's funny because it's like I'm one of those kind of weirdos that's sort of looking forward to solar minimum because like I like these predictable coronal holes and where it's kind of nice. You can
Yeah.
plan aurora trips.
it's fun because I got to go through. I go through cycle 24's max and got from the beginning to the end of that, and I'm like, okay, this was kind of cool, but I'd like to see what an actual solar cycle would provide us to see what kind of fun excitement. No, I regret it. I'm sorry. It's a lot. Like not only is it a lot, but then it comes together at the one time. So, oh, you want
Yeah.
many events all at once. You're not going to have one big event that you can just analyze a little bit and have an event. No, no, Here's 8 CMEs back to back from the same group after 6 hours.
Yeah, they're never like a one and done easy. Well, except for maybe that October 10th event. That was kind of one.
Yeah.
It was a nice
It
change.
was it
And then, of
was
course, the structure didn't make sense either.
Right.
Dirt came.
well, it was West Limb, in case you're wondering.
Oh, the one.
Oh, limb shot. Yeah, that makes sense.
Total sense.
Why wouldn't it?
Yep.
Never in the center.
Yeah, I will say when we're in solar minimum, I'm taking a long vacation from social media.
I don't blame you at all.
Like,
You'll need a break before the next solar cycle starts to rev up. So yes, definitely. Save your strength.
Yeah. Oh, fun times. I love it.
That's weird to think about what the state of social media will be for the next solar max.
Actually, yeah, that's a good question too. Because it seems
I'm
like
scared to get into that one.
yeah, it could go a
Legitimately.
lot of different directions. It really could. Like we could go to the total opposite where people are just like, I don't want this anymore. I want real life again. We revert back to the 90s. But
Oh, how nice.
that's probably unlikely.
Such a happy thought.
Yeah, it's one of those happy thoughts. I don't know. And I think because I think I actually read something the other day about it that people are trying to get more disconnected from it. So there is kind of like some of that movement going on where it's like they want to actually just like experience life again, not just from behind a computer screen.
Yeah, I definitely had to learn that when I started my job. I was like checked in 24/7. Like I'd work my 8 hours and then I'd go home and I'd watch the sun because I was just like obsessed.
You're right.
And it just became so draining that like I had to force myself to unplug. And now I'm just like, I used to like spend my weekends looking at space weather. Now, like, it's like I got the yeah. Now I got the space weather live notifications. Like if something super crazy happens, I'll look, but like I've got better things to do.
I love it.
AKA homework.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's sort of how we sort of got with Aurora to some degree. It's like if it's not anything super crazy, I don't go out of my way. But part of that's because I don't live anywhere that's conducive for it either. Like Tanya's outside of Minneapolis, so it's a little more accessible. It's like you just got to get out of the city lights. But for
where's home base for you?
me, I'm outside Chicago.
Okay.
So my biggest problem is the light pollution. It's just
because your latitude's not terrible.
It's not terrible. It's just you can't see it. Like so I have to drive at least 4 hours north to get out of it. So it's
Yeah.
just, which is why partially how I got into this so heavy because the time commitment to go somewhere was so great that if the four like I if there wasn't a really good chance, it's you're wasting all this time. So that's really one of the drivers that got me into it is because I have to commit really decent in advance
Hmm.
to get just because of where I'm located.
Yeah.
But if we didn't have if it wasn't like a Bortle 9 for as far as you can see, um, the latitude actually isn't that terrible. But you just can't see it. So darn city lights. And
And then
I
you're just too far south. Not too far south. I've seen it a few times here, but like
right.
it's easy for me to get dark skies. I'm just
Yeah.
borderline like I probably need like a G4, G5.
Right. Okay.
Ugh.
Yeah, so it makes it pretty hard. So you have to rely on the, again, something relatively big.
Yeah.
I did get it over the city of Chicago, but that was it was October 10th. There was like a major event because otherwise, and it was fun watching social media too because I'm like I got excited because I got a real aurora over the skyline of Chicago.
Never again.
But as soon as that major like expansion happened, and as soon as it even subsided just a little bit, you couldn't see any of it anymore.
Oh,
And then you see all these pictures from up north or whatever, and everybody's getting beautiful all, and I'm just like,
I mean, even what I got was good.
yeah, it's like, God dang it, these city lights.
that is very impressive though that you got it over
Yeah,
Chicago.
yeah, but it needed a big event to do it.
Yeah.
Just the lights are just so overpowering. I mean, the constant joke is like it's a good night tonight. I could see 9 stars today.
Ugh.
Ouch.
That's so sad.
Yeah, Orion's belt, I can see that. That's it. So, you know, it's been interesting, talking to people too, even with just the night sky Milky Way stuff, because I work with a lot of people that have never been outside of a major metropolitan area and have no idea what a dark sky looks like. So when they see it for the first time, it's like it blows their mind. Um, and a lot of these people, like I've had to explain because they think a lot of these pictures are fake or not real too, because you don't see it and they've never been outside of, a major light polluted area. So it's been interesting to see those kinds of perspectives. And then it kind of makes you sad too, because you're like, they're missing out on so much.
Yeah, it's very
Right.
sad. Humanity used to be able to look up and wander and be inspired by it, and now we're lucky to get, yeah, 2 or 3 stars, or people that are looking up for more than a few minutes a day.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
We're a ground-based species now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I enjoy the work that, International Dark Sky does and stuff like that to try to preserve these areas, especially out west that haven't quite been infiltrated so hard with the light pollution.
Yeah.
They work with the communities there because it doesn't take a lot. It just takes forethought and planning.
Hmm.
You could shield a lot of the lights, and you can actually, I mean, I think Tucson, where they're located, which has a population of over 100,000, but you can see the Milky Way there,
Dang.
and it's
I know.
because they shield the lights and they do things that are just more dark sky friendly, and so it's the people used to think like, oh, you just got to turn all the lights up. That's not the case. It's just using it
No,
correctly.
just keep it away from the sky.
Yeah. So it's kind of too late for the East Coast, like everything east of the Mississippi, really, but except for the northern reaches of, Minnesota, Michigan, and Maine. But they're doing really good work out west, keep trying to, keep our little dark sky sanctuaries.
Yeah, I mean, last year when I went up to the Upper Peninsula
Yeah.
of Michigan, that was the first time I'd ever seen the Milky Way.
Isn't that cool? It's like,
Because
it's
it was
just
just like,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Even if you don't see aurora or anything, it's just cool to see that many stars.
yeah.
That's
Because yeah, it's like I know, right? Like I know the pictures aren't fake,
yeah,
but of course it like you were saying, like you've never seen it, so it feels kind of fake, even though you know it's not.
Yeah.
And so like I saw it and I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there it is, like clear as day. Because that's the other thing is like, like people that are new to it, there was like, where can you see the Milky Way? When you're in a dark sky area, it's so obvious. It's like, no, just wait till it gets dark, you'll see it.
Yeah.
Like there will be no mistake. Almost like if you make the mistake and go out during a full moon or something, but yeah. No, it's one of those kind of life-changing things to see a sky like that. So anyway, sorry, that was my soapbox of light pollution.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
that's
didn't
always an important one.
like I knew there were ways to obviously like improve about it, but I didn't realize that like Tucson had done that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's all. I think it's kind of like the space weather stuff. It's about communication, getting rid of misconceptions about things. Like everybody equates one of the big things, equating safety to light,
Hmm.
and that's not the case either. Like actually, if you shield a light properly, you can see better. You don't get like how some of these lights are so bright that it just kind of blind you, and it
Yeah.
actually hinders your vision. So more light doesn't equal safer.
Yeah.
Things like that. So it's really about communication. So we can circle back to communications and space weather.
Most important part.
Yes, the most important part. So yeah, there's my segue. Sorry. So let's see if we have any more pertinent questions going on here in our little chit chat. Let's see.
We definitely have some conversations.
Yeah, there's some good conversations going on there. Yeah, I like Janelle's like full moon. Yeah, I know. Could be oh yeah, and air quality too. Yeah. I can when you get those like the fires in the summer or just just air pollution in general that can muddy up the skies.
Yeah.
Even the May 11th, when we had pretty nice aurora happening from the same storm. So May 10th has passed, and now we're into May 11th. So it's actually May 12th UTC time. We had so much smoke in the air, so much just poor air quality that it was like photographing cream of aurora. It was
Right.
very diffuse colors. So substorms were happening, very nice visibility. So people were close to it. It looked really good, but for the rest of us, it just didn't look so great.
You're like, why does this look not so good? And then you're like, ah, yeah, that air quality, it'll get you.
Yeah, I actually had, I think was it the October one? I went out with a coworker and like we didn't want to travel super far.
Right.
So we went out like 30 minutes outside of Omaha, got in like, you know, a bunch of just open like fields, like country roads, and hadn't really thought about the fact that like, so we were by these fields and all the farmers were out doing something at night.
Oh
So
yeah.
the horizon was just super dusty and like muddy. And it was like, dang, didn't even think about that when we chose to come out
Right.
here.
Yeah.
It was fine because it was still, even for Omaha, it was still like well above the horizon, but it was just like one of those things that I never would have thought
And you're
about.
like,
I'm like seeing them all out there on their tractors. I'm like, damn it, you're messing with my Aurora.
I know you got a job to do, but
It was funny though, because
yeah.
we were in this field and one of the farmers actually like approached us and like we thought he was gonna like yell at us for being in his field. And I guess he had seen about it on the news. He's like, oh, are you out here for the Aurora? And we're like, yeah, yeah, we are. And he's like, oh, have fun. And he just left. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
That's a good story because sometimes a lot of times you hear about the bad encounters because people are just suspicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, have fun.
Yeah. Well, because like I said, when he like approached us, we're like, oh, we're gonna get yelled at because we're like in his field. But
Right, yeah.
he didn't care.
Great.
It sucked that he approached us when one of the substorms had like died off.
Yeah.
So it appeared where we couldn't see it anymore. So he's like, he couldn't see it, but it's like, I promise I'm here.
I swear, I know it's here.
I'm not just in your field for no reason.
Right. Oh man, yeah. Fun times. Yeah, let's see what we got here. When they were early break. Just looking through the chat, see if we got anything else. Yeah. It's a pretty lively chat. I like they got conversations going on their own too. That's pretty cool. But
I'll have
anyway,
to peek out it after the fact.
yeah. So yeah, I don't see any questions though. That's Tanya or Christian. Any burning questions for you? But I
All
think
were answered.
yeah, I think it's funny because I came into this with no real plan, but I think I've drilled you with a bunch of questions that just came to the top of my head.
That's fine. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, because it's fascinating. You have a fun story and you work a fun job, so it's cool to hear the perspectives, working on the operational side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. Let's see. Like Janelle, she's like, I was in a rural school parking lot last month, and their snowplow guy was very curious, but I told him, and he's like, okay, I'll plow around you.
That's good.
Like, all right, fine.
I'll consider it.
I think I've only been yelled at once for being out in a place, and it got told to leave, and that was actually it was like 90 miles south of Chicago, so it wasn't too surprising because that's still relatively close to the city where you could be doing suspicious things. But most of the time, if I run into police officers and I just show them all the different gear, the star trackers and stuff, they're like, oh, okay, you're fine. Like, have fun. So even though they don't really understand because they're like, what's going on? I'm like, you take a picture of the stars. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's hard when you can't like actually see it for them to see it.
Yeah.
It's just like, just trust me. Like, or you're like,
Not
show
crazy.
the camera. Like,
Because the one outside of Chicago, he was like, he really didn't believe. He was like, because I was like, I'm just taking pictures. He's like, of what? And I was like, the sky? And he's like, you can't see any of that. And I'm like, oh man. Yeah, that's the difference between living in an urban area versus not. You know,
yeah.
that was one of my funny encounters. I was like, all right, fine, I'll leave. Fine. I'll pack up and fine.
Where, like, were you like in a parking lot? Like, where were you
It
then?
was like state park, so probably shouldn't have been there to begin with. But I go to a lot of state parks at night up in Michigan, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But again, they know it's a big dark sky type. Um, the draw there is the dark sky stuff. So I've never had issues being in there, past 10 p.m. when they technically close.
Okay.
So I find that the closer you get to these more urban areas, the more issues you run into. I get it. People do sketchy things at night. I mean, I guess technically what we're doing can be sketchy, but to some people, like, what are you doing out here at 3 in the morning? I'm a night owl, I guess. So then I realize I haven't really done anything in a while. I need to get back out there. So the urge is there, even if it's just Milky Way stuff. It's
Yeah.
been a hot second. So anywho, we're taking up a lot of your time. So I figured if you have any parting gifts or words or whatever, we could have your time back. But this is fun. I'm glad that you came on here.
I appreciate you having me. This was fun.
We'll have to do it again. Like I think we were talking about it, like maybe do it like a impromptu like forecasting type thing if there's a big event. I think
Yeah.
last time we tried it, you were sick at the time.
Yeah. And it's like, I've always wanted to do like a live stream for that.
Right,
But
yeah.
it's like either like I'm at work working the event,
Right.
or like it's like by the time I've worked the event, like I just want no part of it outside of work. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such a struggle.
It's like, oh, it's my job. I don't want to do my job after my job. No,
It's been quiet for a while, so I've had like some time to like chill and relax. So I'm ready now. I'm ready for the sun to scream in my face.
Do it. Make it big. Oh,
Just not on the West Limb.
yeah. Now we need something good.
You know, I know that this like actually means nothing, but I want somebody to analyze all of the flares or whatever. And what is the probability that they happen on the West Limb?
Oh, right. Yeah, really.
It's just
We
suspicious.
actually, yeah, there was
Are
a
we going into
graphic
active
actually
longitudes?
shared. Yeah, no, we're not going into active longitudes. That's a little bit different. But there was something posted in a Linker Discord, and
Hmm.
they're actually fairly evenly distributed.
Huh.
So it's a biasm.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
We
notice when
see
they're on
the
the limbs more.
foreshortening,
Yeah.
so
We just were ready for it.
we see the center really well, and it's spread out nicely in front of us. But the limbs, there's foreshortening, so there are lots of longitudes that are curved. So we assume it's the limb, but it's not. It's still sort of nice and round. It's like you're looking at the ball in 2D. So it
Yeah.
looks like it's on the limb, but by longitude it's not. So it's kind of evenly distributed on the visible side. We don't
Hmm.
know what's happening on the far side,
Yeah.
but no, it's just how we see it.
Hmm. I mean, that's fair. Like, it's like, I'm not trying to start any crazy conspiracy theories or anything, but
So
it was just like, very suspicious sun.
So there is one more interesting question. I think this is, let me see if I'm reading it right. Uh, he's asking, why do auroras go red in streaks? Is that residual energy left in the sky after storms? Or that makes red more common after sequential storms? I wonder if he's talking about the SAR.
Mm.
Or could be the just brighter red that show up with like the May and the October storms too.
Yeah. Because there's a couple ways this could go, and like depending on how he's at, or what, or trying to figure out what he's asking is like if you're at like the not so big events, but you're at a lower latitude, you're like mid latitudes, we tend to see more of the red because of how we look at the aurora
Hmm.
from more straight on versus under. Um, but if you're talking about SAR arc, that's energizing the ring current. And you get that from the more energetic events typically, or like or ongoing stuff. Like we saw the SAR arc, what was that, October 7th and 8th and
hmm
10th? Yeah,
7th,
8th.
8th, and 10th. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's that big red band that's kind of it's subaurora, so it's separate from the main um aurora band. But I'm thinking if wondering if that's what he's referring to.
There are also auroral rays that do appear in those streaks. So that's more how particles precipitate and at what altitude they encounter oxygen or nitrogen. Um, but it's not uniform. So it's not initially we see it as sort of the wall, everything is happening at once. But as event sort of subsides, you start to see more of the streaks, particularly if it's the type of event that we saw on October 10th when we have sort of intermittent major substorms and yeah, something in between. So you see those flares where a little bit of activity is still happening. There's an injection of particles that's coming in. So particles from the magnetotail are being flung into Earth's atmosphere. So you'll see those streaks that are in between. But for substorms, you really see a lot of it happening at the same time. So it just looks like a tons of rays there. And once it subsides, it kind of goes into different type of aurora. It gets to be like more diffuse, patchy, and it starts to pulsate. So it's interesting, but it's all how physics of substorms work. And it's still under very active study. We know basics of it. We think we know the basics of it. It probably is more complicated or maybe more simple than we think. We tend to
Right.
overcomplicate stuff often. But it has to do with where you at in the storm, where you at in the substorm, in what kind of substorm it is. So without knowing exactly what anybody's referring to, it's really hard to know what part of the process is being referred and what exactly you are describing. So some references, some pictures would be helpful for this, but overall, usually red is formed either in the subaurora region, so it's away from the main aurora, from the green part of it, or it's higher up in the atmosphere, where you just have different interaction with, typically with oxygen.
Perfect. There we go.
Mhm.
I think that was the last one. So.
And I did put a picture in chat on the magnitude of flares. It was posted in the Discord. So if you want to take a look or share it,
Yeah.
it still looks like there are more flares on the limbs, but really it's not.
Here, I'll share it real quick so
Yeah.
everybody can see it. So this is the distribution of y'all see it. Clear allow. Okay. Do you see that?
Looks good.
Yeah, there's all your flare locations. So yeah, it's a lot more evenly distributed than we thought.
I don't know. They're still a little bit clustered there on the limbs, especially those X flares.
Yeah, those those
Yeah.
that's funny. So anyway, yeah, there you go. There's your graphic. Oh, all right. All righty. I'll let you guys be, I think. But this was a ton of fun. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Share your stories and having a good old chit chat.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll do this again sometime.
Can you see how many people were watching?
I think we were at like 15 or so at one point.
I've seen, yeah, 12 to 16 so
Okay.
far. It oscillates, but
Yeah.
we usually get a lot more rewatches though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I know some people asked me if it was being recorded to
Yeah.
watch later. So,
Absolutely.
yep.
Once it gets streamed to the internet, it stays there forever.
Yeah.
I won't delete it, so it'll be there forever.
Hear my rants and whatever else.
Yes. So yeah, Margaret says thanks. She's one of our biggest fans from down under and less. So thank you again for being here, and I will tell everybody good night, and I will end it on the live stream. So
See you, everybody.
hey everybody,
Bye.
we'll be back next week maybe. Yeah.
Oh, next week is actually a reportathon, so we are
Oh yes.
we're
Aurosaurus.
volunteering for Aurosaurus reportathon. So please join us. We
Yeah.
love to see you, Aurora, and so would
Reportathon.
Aurosaurus.
So next week is a reportathon. So yes. All right. So on that note, good night everybody.